Good evening, good evening. Oh my goodness, you're going to be fed up with my face, aren't you? So, next instalment of Children's Mental Health Awareness Week. We are going to be looking at big emotions tonight. So let me just do all my checks, make sure everything is live. Yep, there we go. How are we looking? Ah, yes. I nearly had a green jumper on and I would have blended into the background. But I thought, no, I'll stick with this. I will just pop a comment in to say hello, if it will let me. I'm going to be as quick as I can. Oh no, it's frozen. Right. If you are joining live, come and say hello. If you are watching this on catch up, hashtag replay. I'm getting better at reading from my notes that I've created today. So I'm going to stick to them, she says. Okay, so let's get started. I'm not hanging about tonight, I'm cracking on. Okay, so big feelings. What do I mean by big feelings? So when a child is screaming, shouting, yelling, things get too much, or the other side, they get withdrawn, they don't want to talk, they hide, they stay away from people. That's normally a sign of they're dealing with some big emotions. Now, like I've said all the way through this, and I'll probably will continue to say, is this is the first time they're experiencing this, especially if they're under 5 years old and they are having these mixed up emotions. Just be curious and be nice. But these big emotions do show up, and they can lead, they can come from what we think are the smallest of things that we just don't, as adults, we're like, why are they bothered about that? But to them it's huge. So just to clarify, I may use the term meltdown. I am using it as a broad sweeping statement around kids that are struggling. This isn't a neurodiversity specific chat. This is big emotions in general. Please, if you do have what we call, I will use a term that we use in my family, a spicy family, then please take what you need from this. It may cover some of the stuff that relates to you, it may not. But I just wanted to let you know that was what I was meaning while I was, if I use the term meltdown. Okay, so you have these big emotions. They get totally overwhelmed, and that can be overwhelming for you as well. And what can happen, what I used to do with my eldest, was I would fight fire with fire, and I would shout back, and I would be come in at the same level as him. And you can imagine World War III kicked off usually, or we both ended up really upset, or, you know, it just wasn't the best way of dealing with it. But I didn't know much different back then, which is why I'm here to do with today. So this is for you to help your child who's struggling with those big feelings, those tantrums, those outbursts, those meltdowns, whatever you call them in your strops, we used to call them, whatever you call them in your family is what we're going to talk about today. The reason why they struggle is because they don't always have the language or the brain development to manage their emotions the way that we can. When a child experiences big feelings, they are very, very often in fight, flight, freeze, and their survival brain has activated. Now, this is something they don't choose to do. This happens naturally. It's an innate feeling. Their whole drive at that age, and in fact, as adults, our whole drive is to survive. So if they feel like their survival is under threat, even if it's the touch of something doesn't feel right, it can set their hypersensitive, brand new nervous system and survival brain into shutdown, their logical brain shuts down. They won't have much of a logical brain under the age of sort of definitely 5. You may start seeing bits of it going up from 5. But they definitely don't have those skills yet. So at that moment, they are not being difficult on purpose. They have literally lost control. Okay? They're overwhelmed. Their body is completely flooded with emotions, and they don't have the skills to regulate them yet. So it's what happens next is our job to co-regulate with them. We have to be able to regulate ourselves to then bring them down. So I do this quite a lot in my one-to-one sessions, or in my group programs, or on my training. I will co-regulate with my class. So if I have students that are, when I say students, adults, I teach adults, if I have one that I notice has been triggered by one of the topics, we will co-regulate together. What that means is I will hold space for them to explore those feelings and to be in the moment and then come through the other side. That's what we have to do with children. I'm going to stop myself from going off. Okay, so what the co-regulating will do will help you deal with the situation quicker, but it will also help them to calm down, and then we can start to try and problem solve or teach a lesson. Yeah? Until that nervous system has calmed right down, you're just not going to get anywhere. So an incident of this was, I'll say back in 2018, my daughter was a teenager then, and she'd had a crap day at school, and she was fed up and tired, and I think I'd probably fed her by that point, so maybe she wasn't hungry, but you know what I mean, sometimes they can be hungry, and I think I'd said no to something, and she lost her temper. And off she stomped up the stairs, screaming, shouting, swearing, telling me how she was going to move out, and screaming the most horrible swear words down the stairs. And I remember my fella at the time, he was brand new, and he was like, "You're not going to say anything?" I said, "No." I said, "No, there's absolutely no point me saying. When in the world has calm down help someone that's cross?" I said, "She needs to calm down first." I said, "She needs to get it out of the system and calm down." I said, "And then we'll have a chat." So anyway, the night went on, she fell asleep, we went to bed, and then I got up in the morning, and then that evening, the following evening, I said, "Wow, what was yesterday about?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Mum." She said, "I just really lost my temper." She said, "This happened at school, that happened." You know, that's okay. I said, it wasn't very nice, some of the words that you were saying to me. I said, "But I understand. You know, how can I help next time instead of you feeling that cross?" You know, so it changed, you know, and we were able to have that conversation. It completely changed the dynamics. I will admit, and I have apologised, but I did not do that with my son. I was going, "Don't you swear at me, don't you do this, that's not..." And it just escalated horribly. So I'd learn, and the things that I'd started to learn through work, through education, taught me there was a different way. And it was about me keeping my calm, me being able to bring that understanding and to be the adult, to be the parent, and not go down to their level of a brain that's developing, you know? Okay. So if any of this sounds familiar, please jump on, let me know. So some of the strategies that I've seen work with young people, and also I've tried it out with my kids. Unfortunately, my son was too old when I trained as a children's wellbeing practitioner and learned all this good stuff. So he didn't benefit too much from it, unfortunately, but he does now. and my daughter got it through sort of teenage years and up into her 20s now. So, but it's there. Okay, so 3 things that I would recommend and I would talk with mum and dad about, or carer. So name it to tame it. I had one of my clients who, well, they call them patients in NHS, but I prefer not to use that term. So one of my clients, she was a young girl, I think she was around 11, and she had really bad anxiety. And we gave it a name. She picked a name, and I thought it was brilliant. So she was big into football and she hated Liverpool. Sorry, Liverpool fans, but she hated Liverpool, and that's what she chose to call her anxiety. And it put a whole dynamic, a whole different, she felt really empowered. She felt that she could take control of that. And I would come home and we would come into session and I would say, how did Liverpool play today? And it made the conversation so much lighter, but she knew that we were unpicking anxiety and what it was, and that was the name she chose to give it. So allow them to, it helped her verbalise, so she was able to say to mum, oh, Liverpool's out today. And mum would get it, and she didn't have to say the word anxiety. She didn't have to say, it was enough for her to be able to take control of that. Now, this might not work with the older kids. Like I said, I mean, much older, sort of into the 20s, it might not work. But just the other day, with an adult client, I had this same conversation. What's it called? That feeling that you've got there, that you don't really know what it's about, what is it called? What does it look like? How does it feel? And again, making something tangible makes all the difference. Okay, so I've done that bit. Again, what's your language in these moments? Helping them name it and what they're feeling, where they feel it. A lot of younger kids will say tummy. That's because that's the height of where they can understand what's their emotions and what's going on. And name it as well. So I can see you feeling frustrated right now. Would I? Yeah. It looks like you're feeling sad. So I would go a little bit more in depth here. I wouldn't just say that. I would say, I can see your eyebrows are scrunched up. I can see your teeth are tight. I can see your hands are squeezed. Or however they show, I would first notice what I see in their body. And I'll say, that looks a bit like frustration. What do you think? And I would go through, you know, or they've got red face. I would go through very clear, this is what frustration looks like. And you're pointing it out to them. And again, it looks like you're feeling sad. I would say, your mouth's upside down. You've got tears coming out. Your shoulders are over. That looks a bit like sad. What do you think? And just help them get that literacy, get that language of how to explain emotions. Okay, it's really simple. It's a really simple step. It does take practice because, I mean, definitely my age, I'd say 25 and up, you probably didn't get taught how to have emotional literacy. It wasn't around then as much. You kind of just had to get on with it. But now it's coming, thankfully it's coming through. So it might be something that you have to train yourself first. Start with yourself. Okay, what's this look like? What are my physical symptoms first, and what feeling could it be? Okay. So what this does is it reduces the emotional intensity and just helps the brain to move out of stress mode because it's got something tangible. It eliminates that kind of fear of the unknown. and it just brings it down a couple of notches. Okay. For younger children, and again, depending on the scale, you know your kids better, I'm just being very general here, using emotional charts or visuals, again, only if they suit your kids. And with I don't recommend like sticker charts and rewards in that way unless they're done very evenly, you know, we don't, yeah. But using emotion charts or visuals, so there's something called the traffic light, so it's like, it's the different colours of the traffic lights, and there's also the feelings thermometer. You could probably find that on Google. It's the feelings thermometer, so it has the traffic light systems on it and a couple of, but it's a big thermometer, and you can have it on your fridge. And if your child does have a meltdown or is finding it difficult with these big emotions, you can say, where are we on the thermometer? How can mummy help you? Or daddy help you? And for older children, giving them space to talk about what they're feeling in their own time, rather than forcing the conversation. Like I said yesterday, a brilliant place is in the car, because there's no direct, you're not directly sitting. Go and join them on playing a game, they might open up. Tell them it's bedtime. That normally causes them to open up. But be in the moment with them. Try and active listen. Try and repeat back to them what they're saying to show that you've listened. Allow them to work through it themselves by using the language, by being in the moment with that feeling. And just reminding yourself, this is the first time they've known this. How can I support them to know that feelings like anxiety isn't a bad thing. Anger isn't a bad thing. Sadness isn't a bad thing. But it's knowing what we need to do and how we can recognise before it does become a bad thing. Yeah? Well, it's not a bad thing. You know what I mean. Before it becomes unmanageable. Okay. The second, create a safe calm down plan. Yeah? This can, again, work with your child. Children might regulate quicker if they have a safe space to go. Or they may stop the dysregulation before it starts if they have a safe place to go. But it doesn't have to be a place. It could be a little lad that I used to work with had autism, and they had a sensory box, and that was their box. So if they felt overwhelmed, they would get out what they need, and they filled it with the stuff that they knew helped calm them down. One of them was one of the glitter jars, so they would tip it, shake it, and let it settle, and as they watched it, the glitter settle to the bottom. That helped them to calm down. So something like that, but again, work with your child. When emotions are high, remember, logic doesn't work. So telling them to stop or to try and make them think about their actions, it's not, they just can't do it. It's about the body calming down first. The body's taken over. That logic brain has left the building. They've just gone into survival mode. So for younger children, you may have a calm corner. You may have one of those like teepee tents or something. I highly recommend that you don't use bed, just because we want to keep that for sleeping, and that's what they do there. But somewhere separate from the bed. Simple breathing exercises. You could pretend to blow up a balloon only when they're ready. I mean, there's different levels of these dysregulation. If they're up here, asking them to breathe, that's probably not gonna help. What I would, if they are really off the charts, I would just sit in the room with them. I wouldn't even attempt to engage. I would just sit calm with my back against the wall in the room, letting them know they're there, letting them do what they need to do to calm down. and then slowly they'll come and sit with you, they'll come and approach you, and then that's when you can start to do the regulation techniques that you've got. But allow them to, they can't stay up here for too long. It is going to peak and then it will start to come down, and you just need to be there once it does start to come down. So yeah, the quiet corner, breathing exercises, blown up imaginary balloon. Is that the one where you breathe and out and in and out and in and out, and you can ask the child to trace your hands? That's a nice one. For preteens and teens, encourage them to take short breaks, go for a walk, suggest movements, jumping, stretching, squeezing something soft. My daughter loves a good squeeze, and she enjoys dancing. There's some great techniques that you can help. Again, these are what I would do with these is I would try different ones out and see what works for you and your child, and have them sort of as a toolkit, and then they have the choice then. Once they've come down from this peak and they're starting to calm down, they'll be like, which one are we going to get out today? Do you need a squeeze? Do you need quiet corner? You know, or they might just know which one to go to themselves. So every child will have different ways to self-regulate, and it could change each day, just to keep it interesting. But what works for one may not work for another. It is a trial basis, like test it and see what works. You might get a really good one that will last 6 months, and then after 6 months it doesn't work anymore because they've moved on. You know, so our brain develops like from the back and up. So they may have moved on to the next stage of development, and that one doesn't work anymore. So it's about figuring out, okay, they need to develop this much now. What do we do to support that part of the brain being developed? The third one, and I think again this is something else I'm going to say all the way through, is model the regulation for them. Yeah, so they learn emotional regulation by watching us. What do we do? Yeah, if we meet their big emotions with frustration or shouting, they learn that big feelings equal big reactions, which in turn can lead to them keeping very small as adults and not reaching their full potential because they're fear of big reactions. So when we're having a big reaction ourselves, we need to pause. We just need to pause. If you can pause by counting to 10, if you could pause by going and having a drink of water, if you can pause by going and eating a cookie in the bathroom, however you need to pause and come back to your centre and come back to that regulated adult who's showing this infant the way, you then want to model the behaviour. Speak to them about it. Speak to them how you would speak. Speak about yourself how you would speak to them. So like we said before about, look at all the way my body's reacting. So, oh my goodness, mummy feels very hot. My heart is really beating fast. And my eyebrows are like this. That makes me think I'm feeling a bit anxious. So what I'm going to go and do is go and stand at the back garden with my shoes and socks off. I'm going to wash my hands in cold water. I'm going to jump up and down a minute because you notice you're going into hypo mode. Hypo mode, and things are slowing down too much. So you need to get going again. So yeah, take a deep breath before speaking. Show them how to calm down. If you've got a child that maybe isn't too verbal yet or doesn't have that understanding, just do it and talk about it as you're doing it. They'll soon pick up. They learn absolutely everything through modelling initially. So the more you do it, the more they'll do it. And yes, they do pick up the bad habits as well. Okay, so Show them how to calm down in real time. Yeah? So if the opportunity arises and you've been dysregulated because you've just heard that the gas bill's going to go up by another 20 quid or worse, then again, oh my goodness, Mummy needs to sit down for a minute. That was quite a shock. You know, do it with them. I'm going to take some deep breaths. I'm going to have a glass of water. I'm just going to take a moment because that, you know, it does it. Once you start getting in the practice, it does come naturally. Honestly, it doesn't have to be perfect. We're not aiming for perfect because the world isn't perfect. Life isn't perfect. And it's not about creating this false image that everything is perfect all the time, because it really isn't. But what you're teaching them is how to handle challenges, how to handle adversity. So just make sure you're intentional. Just make sure you are thinking with longevity. The more you model staying calm under any stressful situation, the more they will do the same. Yeah? So just to sort of go over it again, big emotions are just as good as any. They are just emotions that we have to learn to manage. Okay? We will still get big emotions, and that's fine, as long as we don't keep losing to those big emotions. So the next time you or your child has a big emotion, remember, name the feeling to help them process it. Go through what you're actually seeing with them. If you haven't done it now and you've got a teenager, start now. There's no time like the present. Give them tools to regulate before reasoning. So wait till they're out of that peak, and then it's time to do the regulation techniques. Okay? You know yourself when you've been angry or cross and you're up here, everything feels like really bad, like the world's crashing in and all the rest of it. Give it 20 minutes and you're like, oh my God, what was I even bothered about? It's that, you know, and they go through the same, but it's just bigger. Model calmness to teach self-regulation. It all starts with you as the parent, as the caregiver. You know, you set the tone for the rest of this child's life. Use it intentionally. Make sure they are learning those techniques. They're going to be adults way longer than they're going to be children. Knowing that they've got those good foundations in place makes a huge difference. So join me tomorrow night. We're going to be talking about understanding anxiety, spotting the signs, and helping your child to feel calmer. Right, I'm off ski. That was good. See you later. Bye.